pattern for DAOs in the space is to essentially start off with a core group of people, a handful, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that kind of come together. They have an idea, they want to make something happen, and they spin up a Gnosis Safe on chain to kind of be their entity on chain. They might go and do things like a token sale, or they might go and do things like kind of deploy some system, some contracts, maybe an NFT contract or something like that, and have the Gnosis Safe own that contract, so they can kind of distribute some trust amongst the core team. And then shortly afterwards, community blows up, and they now have a whole bunch of responsibility piled onto just this core team that should ideally kind of be distributed throughout the community. At least if the goal of this thing is for it to become community-owned, community-governed, if it wants to be a DAO. I don't know, in the past, the process for kind of doing that transition has been to go and migrate all of the assets from the safe to whatever your new DAO framework is, update the owner variables, any contracts it controls, go around and update all of the owner, or all of the like external references to that contract that might be on websites and things that you don't control. And so it ends up being this huge kind of coordination headache. And so essentially one of the key things that we're trying to do with Zodiac is really encourage this pattern. Like when we think about Zodiac, really what it is just this pattern for how we want people to think about how they construct DAOs. So when you start off with that entry point of creating a safe or creating this kind of programmable account as the center of your organization, rather than thinking about, okay, now we want to become a DAO, let's migrate all of our stuff. We want people to start thinking about, okay, what can we plug into the Gnosis Safe to change the way it works? So we don't have to go through this huge headache of migrating, but rather we can just, because it's a programmable account and it's kind of infinitely flexible, you can just plug other things into it to control it however you like. And so that's where Tally comes in this case. One of the options for how you might evolve a Gnosis Safe, how you might change it from being this kind of small group of core contributors that have unilateral control to being something that's owned and controlled by the community, is to plug in a governor through Tally, and then optionally remove the multi-sig signers. So that's essentially what we're going to do today. We've got a safe that has spun up. We've got a governor that Denison baked earlier, and we're going to plug them together and kind of go through this whole process. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Anyone that's in the call, if you've got questions at any point, if I am unclear about something, move too quickly, you can't see anything because the resolution or the bandwidth is shitty, whatever, just feel free to shout out and let me know. And yeah, happy to retrace steps or anything like that. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and share screen. So let's see. All right, you guys should be seeing my screen now or very shortly. So we've got a safe here that you said I spun up earlier. This is our kind of demo DAO safe. It's right now controlled by 2 addresses. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit in case people are on small screens like that.
Yeah, really small. I was like, oh.
So controlled by 2 addresses, both me at the moment. So I just have unilateral control over this. It's not really a DAO, it's just me controlling a multi-sig, which is far less than ideal in a for a DAO-like community. So now we've got this whopping horde of tokens here, a couple of Rinkeby Ether, 1,000 Rinkeby DAI, and 1,000 Venus. And so we want to give control of that over to the community. So Denison went and baked this demo DAO earlier. Granted, the permissions are not a whole lot better in the DAO in this particular case, but in a real case, what we'd hope to see is a whole bunch of voters, a whole bunch of different delegates, and a really nice distribution of tokens to govern this thing. So the first thing that we're going to do here is the Gnosis Safe has this interface on it in the safe contracts. It's called the owner manager, the module manager interface. And then for Zodiac, we kind of rebranded it to make it feel a bit more I don't know, composable with the rest of the ecosystem. So we call it the iAvatar interface. So essentially, we think about the Gnosis Safe as an avatar, the thing that represents your organization on chain. And we are going to use this interface, which essentially has a handful of functions: enable module, disable module, execute transaction from module, and execute transaction from module, return data, I think. And so with those kind of 4 functions, we're able to basically plug anything else into the safe and kind of control it unilaterally. So a module is another address that you can plug into the safe that gets to bypass the multi-sig logic. It gets unilateral control. It can have unilateral control in parallel with the multi-sig signers and in parallel with any number of other modules. You can plug however many modules in you like. So the first thing that we're going to do here is just find our, let's see, do we have a time lock on this Governor Dennison, or will it be?
Yes, we do. We're just not showing it in the interface, but there is.
All right. How can I track down that? I guess I can maybe take this and.
Yeah, you would go to Rinkeby or to Etherscan.
Let's see. So we'll go and grab a time lock contract, hopefully. Okay, cool. So our code is verified, so we can easily jump in here and should be able to find our time lock contract. So I'll grab that address, and this is going to be the address that actually calls the execute transaction from module function over on our safe. So this is the one that we want to add as a module to our safe. So I'm going to jump in here, fire up the Zodiac app. I may already have some modules installed on this safe because it's one that I recycled from earlier. So we're just going to ignore these other modules and act like they don't exist, or I could delete them quickly, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. So I'm going to take our...
Oren?
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you quickly explain compare modules and apps?
Yeah.
Because I know that the Gnosis Safe has some extension mechanism. I don't understand if that's the modules that you're talking about.
Yeah, so apps here, these are really just front ends. These are UIs that load up some application, and then you can basically, like, where you would hit a button and it normally would trigger MetaMask, you'll hit a button and it'll make a pop-up to trigger a transaction in your safe, or like queue up a transaction in your safe. So an app doesn't actually change, or unless it kind of specifically makes a call to your contract, like your safe, to change something. To use an app doesn't require any specific changes to the safe. It doesn't require you to interact with most of the safe's functions. What it's doing is essentially just treating your safe in the same way that you would treat MetaMask in most other apps. It's the app that's kind of authenticated in here. So safe apps just live inside of the safe UI and give you a nice, easy entry point to where when you hit the app, you're just automatically logged in as the safe that you are connected with.
Got it.
And then modules, on the other hand, are a contract that you explicitly enable on a safe, and then, or I should say, an address that you explicitly enable on the safe, and then that address now has unilateral control over the safe. So typically, you wouldn't give that to an EOA, like to a MetaMask account. You would give it to a contract that implements some logic that you want to give unilateral access to the safe. So that might be, say, for instance, our exit module here. This lets you enable kind of a rage quit-like mechanism inside of the safe. So you can redeem an ERC20 token for share of the safe's assets. So by building that as a module, we can make that a kind of granular piece of functionality that you can kind of add or remove from a Gnosis Safe. And then any kind of DAO mechanism that has the ability to call arbitrary functions or to call the execute transaction from module function on the safe can be enabled as a module as well. So that's what we're doing here. The time lock has the ability to execute arbitrary functions. So we can use that to now interface with the safe. So I'm going to go ahead and enable our time lock on our safe. Hopefully Rinkeby will play nice. It's been a little bit flaky over the last 24 hours. But I think we should be good. Cool. So our time locks showed up here because it's verified on Etherscan. We can see all of the functions it has and interact with them here. One thing I do want to show off here, actually, that I really hope more applications start kind of utilizing is this really neat transaction bundler. Let me try to find something that doesn't take too many parameters. Or at least too many parameters that I don't have an easy, let's see, address. Okay, I can just plug in any old address here for now. So let's say I have something that I'm wanting to do here. I can hit add this transaction. Now I can do the same thing, making a big batch of transactions. Add as many as I want, and then I can go to a cart here, I kind of rearrange them how I like, and then submit these all in one big bundle to the safe. So you kind of cut down on the coordination and gas costs for doing multiple calls. Just wanted to show off, this shopping cart because I don't know, I really like it. It's a really nice UI pattern, and I'd love to see more applications start to adopt kind of a pattern like that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Hey, Oren, quick question. What is read contract? I was going to ask that.
What was that, sorry? Oh, so this is just these two tabs here. So this is similar to like on Etherscan, where you've got your read and write tab. So it's just exposing the ABI functions if it can find the contract source.
But in this in this case, like in this context, we've added the time lock as a privileged owner of the safe. And when we click on it, we can see the functions that are available on the time lock. But what would calling those look like? Is that the safe calling this contract that potentially would be calling the safe? Or is it do you know what I mean? Like, because the time lock
So right now, like if we were to like write anything, this would be the safe calling these functions. And so in the context of a time lock, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, although it might. I mean, it really depends on what address is the owner of the time lock. In the context of other modules here, for instance, there may be some functions that are kind of only owner that you want the safe to own, and so you're able to then just come in and interact with those functions here. This is, I think we have some ideas of in the future kind of improving these UIs for some of the specific modules to make them a bit more user-friendly, but the kind of short-term hack for this to get kind of relatively universal support was just to expose the ABIs. So yeah, now we're at the stage where the safe has been deployed, the DAO has been deployed, and the DAO has now been enabled as a module to the safe by adding the time lock as a module. So what we should probably do is a quick test proposal just to make sure that this thing actually works the way that we want it to. So I think maybe for our first proposal here, I'll just try sending myself some tokens. I'm going to skip the tour because I think I know how it works.
Maybe you could zoom in a little bit, Oren, just for folks on tiny screens. Awesome, thank you.
All right. So we're going to do a custom action here. And what we'll want to do is grab our safe address. drop that in, and then we need an ABI. So I'm going to just drop in the iAvatar ABI. And then hopefully it's going to load the methods. Give it a quick refresh and try again. I know that that Tally just pushed an update a few minutes ago, so I may not have refreshed at the right time. Also seems to be something eating some RAM here. I think it's maybe some other window that I have open.
Might be Google Meet. I feel these video calls eat up so many resources.
All righty, let's give this another try. All right, so let's try again. I think that is our safe address. I'm going to drop in the avatar API. And this time it's going to let us select methods. So we're going to go exec transaction from module. And now we're basically going to tell the safe which contract it wants to call out to. So we'll jump over and we want to call out to the Venus contract. So I'll grab Venus contract's address, drop that in here. Value is our ether value in way that we want to include in the transaction from the safe. So in this case, it'll be 0. Data, we're going to jump over to this nifty little transaction encoder. And I'm going to, cool. Yeah, this is a nice little app that Sam on our team spun up actually as part of his interview process, which was pretty dope. And so we're going to go to me. Let's grab my address real quick.
Is this public? Can we play with this?
The repo is, we had it live on a subdomain of gnosisguild.eth. It was just abi.gnosisguild.eth. But then all of the subdomains on ENS got broken, and so we haven't fixed it. But yeah, it's let's see. I'll figure out the repo for it. Actually, here we go. It's API demo. So github.com/gnosis/API demo. Our Zodiac transaction encoder is the new
cool
name for it. So I'll drop that in the chat here so people can go and play with this repo. It's yeah, it's a handy one. So back to the transaction encoder. So we've got my to address, tokens. So the amount of tokens that we want to send, we might need to use the unit converter on Etherscan. There's one handy way that you can do this. So I want 100 tokens. I need 100 times 10 to the power of 18. So there we go. It's not going to like a number that big because it's JavaScript, so just wrap it in quotes, and that will give us our call data to drop into Tally. So I'll drop that in here, should be good to go, and our operation will be 0. The options here are 0 or 1. 0 is for a call and 1 is for a delegate call. Now if we hit continue, this will give us our proposals. I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And hopefully, all right.
Come on, Rinkby. Stay
Go,
with
Rinkby,
us.
go.
Stay with us, Rinkby. I'll go get somebody to like shock Rinkby.
It looks like it just confirmed a minute ago. At least like MetaMask told me it confirmed. All right, proposal created. So, how do I go from this screen back to where was that?
Yeah, we need to implement a back button. Actually, we noticed that just the other day.
Yeah, no worries. So, let's see. I guess it might take a minute to index here before it'll show up.
Yeah, I think we're about 5 blocks behind, just to save us the trouble of dealing with reorgs.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, in that case, maybe this is a good chance to take any questions or clarify anything that is not immediately obvious at this point. Great job of explaining. We're all good.
Just fantastic, so clear. I'm loving that transaction builder.
It's handy, huh? All right, here we go. So we got our proposal. It's live. I really appreciate the fact that I didn't need to refresh to see it. I'm going to go ahead and vote.
Yeah, so again, it'll be 5 blocks to see it come up.
Cool. No worries.
I forget what we set as the delay on this one, but funny, in testing the other day, I soft bricked the DAO I was working on before because they set the proposal period shorter than our indexer lag for reorgs. So by the time it came up, it was already over.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a bit of a balancing act for demos, right? Like you want to set it to where it's short enough that you don't have too much dead time, but then long enough that you can actually go in and vote or go in and do whatever your action is. Especially when you're dealing with like public test nets that can be a bit flaky, or your transaction might fail the first time you try to do it or something like that. So you have to allow like a little bit of a grace period.
Yeah, it's like doing hackathons on Rinkby, and you're like standing up on the podium, and you're like, "Come on, just confirm."
Yeah, absolutely. Live demos are always a roll of the dice.
Okay, we should be getting there.
Looks like the vote was cast already. I'm gonna go back to.
Oh yeah, see the votes cast. So now we have to wait for the vote to end successfully.
Where do we see how long it's got left? Or
so we don't show that currently, but we are.
Oh, yeah, end block. Okay. So Rinkby's got this nice little feature. If you put in a future block, it'll tell you how long until that future block. All right, 11 minutes. So we got a bit of dead time.
Oh no, okay.
No worries. So what I'm going to do then, to fill that time, or at least like to use it well, is I'm going to put up another proposal, and we're going to make the assumption that this proposal works as intended, and actually sends me 100 winners. So at this point, like once we see this balance change from 1,000 to 900, and we see that we check the transaction, just make sure it went to the right place, then we can be pretty certain at that point that the governor can actually control the safe well, and so at that point we no longer need these two guys, Oren and Oren, controlling the safe. There's no point having. Well, there's no great need to have them there as a safety measure at that point. So we may as well go ahead and remove them. So what I'm going to do here is create another proposal to remove both of the owners of the safe. Jump in here. I'm not sure what's going on with the text editor. That was weird. Now we'll do a custom action. So we're calling this time the safe again, and with the same interface. So I'll drop the avatar interface JSON in there again. We can do exec transaction from module. Now, Tally has the ability to, or I should say governor has the ability to do multiple actions attached to one proposal. But there's a limitation to that, I believe. Is it 10 actions per proposal?
Yeah. The Open Zeppelin governor actually does not have that limit, but the original compound one does.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, so then,
great to know.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So this is maybe a bit redundant then for me to have to build this out as a multi-send transaction. Although in the case of a governor controlling a safe, I would guess that it's probably more gas efficient to call multi-send from the safe rather than to have the governor contract go through the execute transaction from module kind of entry point on the safe multiple times, just because you'd be redoing your validation each time. So with that in mind, I'm going to drop in a multi-send transaction that I baked earlier. So 2 is going to be the multi-send contract. Value again is going to be 0. Data this time is going to be a much longer string that is essentially 2 calls to the safe itself. And it's going to be a delegate call here to the multi-send contract. So basically, the safe is going to end up calling itself twice. It will call remove owner and it will call swap owner. So remove owner will just remove our first owner, this one, and then swap owner here will swap this one out for 0x dead. So at that point, we can be pretty confident that there is no private keys that can control the safe. But like I said, this is not, it's to a certain extent redundant because we could do the same thing by adding multiple actions. Nevertheless, I'm going to go ahead and hit continue and put this proposal up so that we don't have too much of a delay between the execution of both of those proposals. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll jump back to a home page. And again, I guess we got a good few minutes in the meantime. Another 6 minutes till we can execute our first, or actually, I guess it depends on what the time lock is as well, because this would be the end block for voting, right? And then there'll be a delay on the time lock as well. So
I think I made the delay really short, I think.
Okay.
But if I overlooked how long voting takes, then maybe I overlooked that too.
Is it minimum delay?
Yeah, 10. Okay, that should be seconds.
Is this in seconds?
I think so, yeah.
Cool.
So hopefully that is.
Maybe can you share some other features of Zodiac? Like I'm seeing there's 4 components: avatars, modules, modifiers, and guards. Maybe could you mention how the other 2 play into it?
Yeah, so avatars are the kind of programmable accounts at the center. We use the Safe as the kind of prototype for that, but really any programmable account that implements the same interface could then plug into any of these other tools. A module is something that you would enable on an avatar to kind of extend its logic. So in this case, obviously the time lock is the module that we've added so that a governor can control it. Some of the other modules are things like our reality module that lets you hook safe snap up to, or snapshot up to a safe. I guess more correctly though, the reality module lets you control a safe via reality.eth, which is this really interesting kind of escalation game based oracle. And so what it could actually do is bring on-chain, bring kind of any off-chain decision-making mechanism on-chain. So you could do it with Snapshot, you could do it with Discord or Twitter polls or discourse polls, you could roll dice or flip coins or whatever you want to kind of, and use reality to essentially bring that logic on-chain. The exit module we talked about earlier kind of adds rage quit-like mechanics to a safe. The bridge module is one that I'm really excited about, and we're looking to kind of improve actively right now, but it's essentially lets an address on one network control a safe on another network. So you can imagine like a DAO deployed on some L2 or on some sidechain where execution is much cheaper than controlling a safe on mainnet. So they can have their treasury on mainnet where all the liquidity is, but do their decision making on L2 or on a sidechain where it's much cheaper to do on-chain voting. Then we have a handful of other modules that we've been working on. Yeah, just to get back to the kind of different pieces of Zodiac. So a modifier is essentially a contract that exposes both the avatar interface and the module interface. So what it does is essentially sit between an avatar and a module. So with modifiers, you can create essentially these arbitrary chains of different pieces kind of connected to one another to modify how they behave. So you might do something like we have a delay modifier, which acts much like the time lock for governor, where you would put a delay modifier between the safe and then some other module that you want to give control of the safe. So this might be a kind of a safer way to give an individual some unilateral control over the safe. If you want to say you get to do whatever you like, but you're going to sit behind a 1-week time lock so that we, the DAO, can veto any of the stuff that you're trying to do if we think what you're doing is malicious. We also have a unreleased, but it did just pass its audit modifier called the roles modifier, which we're really excited about. It essentially lets you define roles, which kind of within that role, you can then define any number of target addresses that the role is allowed to trigger the safe to call. And then within those target addresses, you can choose to optionally scope it to the function level. So you can then define which functions a role is allowed to call on which target addresses. And then optionally, you can scope it down further. So you can say which parameters on which functions, on which addresses specific roles are allowed to call. And you can also do things like allow or disallow delegate calls and allow or disallow sending ether as value along with transactions. So you get kind of really fine-grained access control that you can build out. And then, so once you've defined those roles, you can then assign any number of addresses to those roles to give kind of autonomy to addresses within some limited scope. So the concrete use case that we're thinking about for this is the Karpathy treasury management team has been doing treasury management for Gnosis prior to kind of Gnosis shifting all of the treasury over to the Gnosis DAO. And so in the context of the Gnosis, the organization or the kind of traditional or legacy kind of legal structure, having a relatively small group have relatively unilateral control over the treasury was kind of more acceptable. But in the context of a DAO, it's I mean, it's still obviously a choice the DAO can make, but I think that the less opportunity there is for a small group of people to run away with all the money, probably the better. And so we've built out this modifier to enable us to enable the Gnosis DAO to kind of strictly scope out what the treasury management team is allowed to do. So it would do things like allow them to move funds between different curve pools or move funds from into and out of various different kind of DeFi applications, DeFi contracts, but not make arbitrary transfers to any address they want. So it allows them to, or will allow them to be kind of autonomous in their role in terms of doing treasury management, but not give them the freedom to just take off with all the funds. Not that I have any suspicion that they actually would, but just for good kind of security practice. So yeah, modifiers are basically just a contract that sits between a module and the safe to modify what it does. And then guards are a kind of another concept where you can enable a guard on a contract, and it will basically force that contract to do a pre-check and post-check on every transaction that it tries to execute. This only works on contracts that actually have explicitly kind of built in the interface to interact with guards. So the safe does that, and then any of the modules that we built do that. So you can apply a guard to it and then make it do some pre-check and or post-check every time it tries to execute a transaction. So that could be things like building out similar logic to the roles module. We have a kind of scope guard module that is a more simplified version of those that roles module. And we imagine that being used in cases like where you want to have, say, some multi-sig signers, and you want to give them veto rights over the safe snap reality module. So you want to say, we've got these multi-sig signers. We don't want them to have arbitrary access to the whole safe, but we do trust them to veto any malicious transactions that happen to make their way through the reality module. And then another one that we thought about that we built was this mod guard, which is essentially just allows you to define some list of modules that you don't want the thing that has the guard on it to be able to disable from the safe. So say you've got your multi-sig signers on there, and you've got governor plugged in, and you still have both of them have unilateral control, but you don't want the multi-sig signers to be able to just arbitrarily remove the governor. So you put this mod guard on there. So now anytime they try to remove the governor, it will just fail. So yeah, that's avatars, modules, modifiers, and guards. And that's kind of when we talk about kind of Zodiac, like that's really Zodiac is just this kind of standard or pattern that we want to kind of encourage people to build toward. And then we're obviously kind of building tools towards that pattern as well. But we just see it as a really functional way of creating a much more composable DAO ecosystem.
Cool, thanks.
I realize I've been sitting here on Etherscan, which was very interesting. Let's get over to Tally and see how our proposal's going. I guess we can check back on our block countdown, see what we got going on. All right, so we must be in the time lock now. I ranted on long enough.
I already voted for your remove Orin and Orin from the safe.
Ah, perfect. I forgot about that. So now we should be able to execute this one, right? Assuming that it was seconds and not minutes. So to do that, we go to the admin panel, if I recall correctly, and we need to queue this one up. Okay, so we queue it up and then it's going to take it. Then we got our time lock.
Yeah, I hope that is seconds. I think the time lock is in seconds.
Yeah, that would make sense. All right, so just waiting on Rinkby again. Looks like it just confirmed. So
Web 2 is so much faster.
What was that?
I said Web 2 is so much faster.
Yeah, I mean, that's where rollups are so interesting, right? Where you have a sequencer and like essentially, I mean, depending on the construction of the rollup, but like arbitrums and optimism are really interesting in that, if I understand correctly, they essentially do one transaction per block, so you just get instant confirmation. It feels so much more Web 2-like. I remember the first time I tried Optimism's Unipig exchange, and I was like, oh my God, this is unreal. Like, just because, you know, if you've been in the Web3 ecosystem for a while, you get used to clicking something and waiting seconds or minutes or hours for things to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, with that example for Optimism, it just happened instantly, which was super cool.
Hey, kind of a question while we're also waiting here, and maybe you might want to refresh the page just to see that execute is live. When we talk about where we can use Gnosis, I know that Terrence had asked a little earlier about where Gnosis Safe is, and with the new Gnosis chain, is it possible for us to send? Is there like a sort of reliable? I know there was like an arbitrary message bridge there, sort of like on Optimism, how there's kind of like you can build pretty easily this arbitrarily send messages to Optimism. Is there a reliable way to arbitrarily send messages to Gnosis chain right now?
Yeah, so the arbitrary message bridge exists already. Obviously everything that was live when it was called XDAI is still live, so you still have that. The only issue with it is that it's effectively a multi-sig. So you have a set of bridge oracles, and any threshold of those oracles can send whatever they want. So it's, if you're already using Gnosis chain and you're bridging kind of from mainnet to Gnosis chain, those oracles, I believe, are kind of a subset of the validators. And so you already trust them. You already have a pretty high degree of trust in them anyway. So I think like bridging from Gnosis chain, from mainnet to Gnosis chain, you're not really, your trust assumptions aren't really changing much as compared to just using the chain as a whole. And then bridging back the other way, if you're kind of bridging assets, I don't think the trust assumptions change all that much. But if you're using it to control really large systems, if you're using it to control some huge DeFi protocol or something like that, then I think, again, like in theory, in practice, I don't foresee any of the bridge oracles actually being malicious. But in theory, any coalition of them that reaches the threshold could broadcast false transactions over on mainnet. So it's not an ideal solution. And then the other issue with it is that you can't go kind of any to any. Like there's a bridge between Gnosis chain and mainnet, and then I think there's a bridge between Gnosis chain and a handful of other networks, maybe like Gnosis chain and BSC or something like that. But in an ideal world, you want to be able to bridge kind of any EVM compatible network to any other EVM compatible network. So we're exploring an integration with Nomad as a way of doing this. And so essentially build like an adapter to our existing bridge module. And then, with that, we should be able to have any-to-any data bridging, potentially token bridging alongside of it, without having to, and with kind of better trust assumptions because of the kind of, I don't know, for anyone that's not familiar, Nomad is this bridging solution where you essentially have a set of bonded relayers, and they can attempt to pass any message they want, but they're kept in check by a set of watchers. Any one of those watchers can stop an outgoing message and then slash the bond of the relayer back on the origin chain. And so the trust assumptions are really that there is at least one honest and available watcher at any given time. So if you trust that of the entire watcher set, one of them will be online and honest, then you can be pretty confident that no false messages are going to get through.
Yeah, that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's jump back into our admin panel. Hopefully we
I went
can
ahead and
execute
queued
now.
the other one as well.
Oh,
So
nice.
hopefully we're just ready to send you some weenus.
Cool. Well, let's trigger this. This is the moment of truth to see if it all actually worked as intended. I'm going to jump into Safe View over here. See if we can see a transaction come through. It won't go into the queue like a normal transaction would. It's going to show up instead just instantly in the history as soon as the Safe Transaction Service indexes it, and it will show up as a module transaction or a contract interaction. I can't remember which way exactly how it shows, but yeah, it should show up in here, and then we should see our balance change from 1,000 to 900. And we should see my balance change from, oh, here we go. Nice. So minus 100 Winos just shows up as a send. And we're going to just check it out on Etherscan to make sure it all looks good. Yeah, looks like we sent from the safe to me. I called the governor contract. Let's just make sure that that's actually the right address. Oh, hold on. Did I call that governor or a time lock or something else entirely? I actually don't know where the entry point is. I mean, evidently it's here. I just don't know what that is. Let's go exploring. Yeah, okay.
It's a time lock, I think.
It's a different address to the time lock. But it's our governor.
Maybe that's the governor.
Yeah. Oh, I just didn't recognize it because it was the case was different. Here, so yeah, I guess here they just showed all in lowercase. Cool. Yeah. So I called the governor contract. Governor contract triggered the execution of a transfer in the safe. So hey, it all worked.
Very cool.
So now the last thing for us to do is to remove me from the safe. Go ahead and confirm this one and hope that I encoded that multi-send transaction correctly. So we'll see how we go. But we should see the safe interface change here to like read-only mode when this next transaction comes through, which again should only take it looks like it just confirmed on Rinkeby, so give it another minute. There we go. So it's in read-only mode now because we just had a new transaction come through that changed our settings, removed me as an owner, and just put the dead address there instead. So now this safe is exclusively controlled by this governor instance. What started as a little project run by the founders is now a fully fledged DAO. And yeah, I guess cool. That's the demo.
That's cool. I'm doing a little clap. Yay!
That was fun.
I think that's really powerful. That's great to see the whole flow for beginning to end. Yeah, I could see that being an upgrade path for a lot of for a lot of like Gnosis DAOs. And to be clear, we don't have to remove the signers. They can be alongside, but we could use that guard so that they can't remove the people, the governor, and potentially even put limits on what the single, EOA signers are allowed to do, with the governor being one with absolute control.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the really nice thing with this pattern is that it's not prescriptive, right? Like you can branch out in any number of different possible configurations. And so like, yeah, one really nice pathway there would be to go Gnosis Safe, like multi-sig to governor connected to the safe with your multi-sig signer still there in parallel, kind of what we did at the start where I still had control, and we did a bit of a test proposal to make sure everything was working as intended. But we still had that fallback. If it was busted, I could still, as the multi-sig signers, go through and fix it. And then next upgrade path might be to enable that mod guard so that the safe owners can't remove the governor, or alternatively the scope guard. So all they can do is some handful of kind of predefined things. Maybe they're able to veto, or maybe they're able to do set some spending limits, or I don't know, just some limited subset of things. And then last thing is okay, we don't need them anymore. We're just gonna scratch them all together.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it was very cool.
Yeah, cheers.
Definitely space also, I think, to find a way to make it simpler for folks. I'm really interested in checking out your transaction builder because that seems very cool.
Yeah.
Oren, thank you so much for your time today.
No worries. Really happy to. This was a bunch of fun. I will spruik actually something for making this kind of flow easier. Yarn, one of our devs, built this really nice React library, React multisend, and then this Ethers multisend library if you just want to I'll find it and drop in chat here in a second. But yeah, these two libraries that you can use to build similar interfaces and get a fairly consistent user experience compared to other interfaces that are kind of doing the same thing. So yeah, if that helps shortcut it for anyone, then that would be, it will have done its job.
Very cool. So React multisend, and then the other is Ethers multisend?
Yeah, and so Ethers multisend, React multisend is built on top of the Ethers multisend library, and it's basically just a bunch of React components that you can drop into your application. And then Ethers multisend is just all of the underlying pieces for building those multisend transactions.
Okay, very cool. I'm looking
cool.
for
I just dropped them into chat here.
Oh, I found it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Oren, for your time. I'm sorry once again, everyone, that we weren't able to record this. My bad. But this is a special event.
Cool. Thanks, guys. This was a ton of fun. If anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to stick around. Otherwise, I'm on Twitter, on Discord, on Telegram, just about everywhere else online.
Thanks, Oren. We really appreciate it. Thank you.